Amy Tan, an American author, once said, "What makes people resilient is the ability to find humor and irony in situations that would otherwise overpower you." The guest in this podcast is in the process of building resilience. This is Mental Wealth Podcast. A side note, the following podcast has sensitive content. Listeners' discretion is advised. Podcasts are an amazing way to get your message out. You get an engaged audience who consume your content anywhere, anytime, and we'd like to help you get started with launching your podcast. Acute helps you conceptualize, produce, package, and distribute. Email us at hello@acute.co.ke. That's acute with a Q. Time to express yourself.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Mental Wealth Podcast, where we talk about everything mental health and how we can find solutions to mental health issues and struggles that we face as human beings. And I'm your host, Lilian Simiyu. I am with
DMW.
DMW ni nini, Derek?
Derek Masabawere, the first of that name.
Today, what are we talking about today, Derek?
Today it's a big topic.
It's a big topic.
Yeah, it's a big topic. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether I should share before we start this conversation. I know it's not our culture to, but again, we're here with a guest. Today we're going to talk about
family issues.
Family issues.
Yeah.
Things that affect us as we grow up in our homesteads. One could term as traumatic experiences. Mm-hmm. But we want to understand from our guest perspective, her experience in her home as she grew up as a kid, and maybe how it affected her and it still affects her identity to some extent. So without doing any other thing, I think it's my honor to invite our guest maybe to introduce herself as we get deeper into this conversation.
Hello, I'm Mideva. I'm glad to be on this platform and share about my experiences, and I hope it will touch so many and it will at least make a change in the society.
Thank you very much, Mideva. And as Derek has mentioned, today we're talking about family issues and how sometimes toxic caregivers can have a negative effect on our mental health. And for Mideva, it was her stepdad. And I think many of us have different stories about how we had toxic caregivers, whether it's our biological parents, our step-parents, our aunties, or just strangers sometimes. Somebody who was our caregiver, but they were toxic, and them bringing us up tampered with our identity, our self-esteem, and everything in between. So I'll invite Mideva to just share her experience on what she has gone through, what she would like to share with us, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. I was raised up in ghetto. Fortunate enough, I was lucky to have a dad who is my stepdad. My biological dad, though, is alive, but is someone that I've never come across him. Only talk on phones, and it's not that effective. Growing up with a stepdad, it has been really challenging, and it really affected so many aspects of my life, that to the extent I used to live, let me say, a two-faced life. It's like being in front of a mirror where it's the object and the reflection of you. So there I was forced to live two lives, where I wanted to show the society that I'm happy, but deep inside, when I am alone, I'll just stay awake so many hours thinking about my misery, thinking about what I'm going through. And it made me I created my own world since my childhood. I used to see myself as a very different kid, and even as other kids were playing, I feared playing those games like Kati, kalongolongo. I feared engaging in those games because my self-esteem had been tampered. And at a point in life, I used to blame myself so much, and it affected my self-identity. I didn't know who I was because I was living a life where I chose other people's happiness rather than mine. I got motivated by bad things. I used to read so hard, burying myself in books, not because I want to read, but because I am running away from the reality where the world is happy, but I am sad.
You've shared quite a lot, but I would want to, or maybe people who are listening would want to know, what exactly did you experience that made your self-esteem to be tampered with? What exactly was your experience?
Okay, now living with my stepdad, I was forced as a kid to act like an adult. I remember when I was just, remembering 4, 5, when I was just 4, 5, 6 years, I was forced like to do house chores. I was beaten. Ilikuwa inafika time hadi majirani wanashangaa, ningegongwa nigonganishwe kwa ukuta nini, like angekuja pate just maybe kibuyu nimeacha nje. Hizo unajua tulikuwa tunaishi ghetto. Kibuyu nimeacha nje, ingekuwa vita, ningegongwa. Sometimes saa zingine umeshuka piece, nywele ingevurutwa. And I remember as a young kid ilifika mahali hadi I was forced, alinitoa kwa nyumba akanipeleka kwa kinyozi ninyolewe. The fact that ati nywele inafanya nikuwe kichwa ngumu. Yeah, it seems funny, but at that time it really tortured me. And hearing arguments, like they could argue, and they found the background of the argument, it used to be all about me. Mimi sijui nimefanya nini, whatever nini. But what really used to surprise me is like tungeishi, I was living with them, he used to torture me. But when people came, when my grandmother came, nini time mwenye napigia simu, mimi nimechoka nikujieni, that time he was so good. He was the perfect definition of a great dad. My daughter ni mwerevu, sijui nini. So like ungeambia mtu bana ina napitia, alafu anakuja anaona bana no. kuna vile unadanganya. So living that way, it really tempered with me. I was forced to act like an adult. At 4, I remember there was a time nilifukuzwa na maid nje, tulale nje. Ikafika mahali I had to move to my grandmother's place. I stayed there for some months just because my next sibling alikuwa amezaliwa and alikuwa na join school. So because alikuwa amejoin school, and Mideva akutua hapo as an image, angenipeleka shule, nilikuwa tu, and my mom always chose her marriage over me. So mamangu si tuko tu anaambia tu anasoma, but the reality at the neighbors, the neighbors had to intervene and call my grandmother na waambie bana msichana mali yako asomi, sasa ni tambili amekaa nyumbani na tuoni akipelekwa shule. That was the time my grandmother took me. And just before that, my dad used to sexually harass me. And knowing this is bad, you have no one to talk to, you don't even have friends. Akubali hata uongee na mtu, ukicheka na jirani, ukiingia kwa nyumba hiyo ni kofi. You see, anytime he noticed that I'm starting to get closer to someone, ange cut off. I remember up to my adulthood, my whole high school life, I could get attached to someone, ange create up stories, being the bad picture in the society. So ile majirani intervened, my grandmother took me, and that was when I got connections and joined the ABC Children's Home, which is in Kariobangi. Now one problem was solved, the fact that now hakuna shida ya fee, shule imekuwa sorted. But pia they demanded I have to go and stay with them, which kwa
the children's home.
No, with them nirudi niishi nao. As in sasa walikuwa sema sijui nitadekezwa nini. So my church had no alternative but to let me go back. Now I went to another misery. I remember that time I was in class, I joined ABC class 4 that time. I was really a bright kid, and remember that time suffering, hakuna mtu mwenye I used to share with him or her about my story. It was only me and my shush. my sufferings ni mimi tu na shosho yangu, nobody used to know. So in school it was that small little girl ule bright nini, teachers walikuwa wananipenda, but I used to suffer deep inside. Like I remember my old primary life, nilikuwa na unaona hizi sandals, I don't know how they are called, hizi zenye hadi joy kiwa ukitembea kwa lami na kuchoma. Yeah,
zile viatu za plastic.
Hizo viatu za plastic. All my primary life hiyo ndo nilinanga nayo shule. And hii bag ya footballers, hapo ndo nilikuwa na bebea viatu nini, vitabu. Not because my parents lacked that much, I couldn't get them, but just because, I'm just nothing but a stepdaughter. Now my education was guaranteed. It reached a time where now I was struggling with self-identity. Someone might look at you and tell you, you're good in this, whatever. So I chose, like, let me at least at a point find happiness. And at that time I used to find happiness in writing poems, citing poems. Yeah, teachers got close to me. So ilikuwa inafika time, unaona hizi time ya music festival, ilikuwa walikuwa wananichukua. So hapa ku participate at sub county level ilikuwa shida, because you see it's within Nairobi. Unaenda tu shule kawaida, they never used to know. Because I used to feel like obvious angejua, angefanya juu chini nisi participate. Like anything that used to make me happy, angekata. Now ikafika mali I proceeded to regionals, and I remember that time regionals ilikuanga Kajiado. So we had to go there for a week. So the teachers had to call my parents and tell them, they have to allow me to go somewhere for a week nini. Yeah, and when my dad was told, created chaos. Akakuja shule, and just as innocent as I was, akasema walimu wananitaka nini, whatever. And that was the time even teachers came to know a little bit of my story and what I was going through, because they were like, he's a smart kid, he's a bright kid, vitu zenye unasema unafanyanga atuoni huku shule ama huko nyumbani ndo ako different. And I remember that time my shosh was so close to me, hadi alikuwa amekuwa, how do you call it, class representative of my class. So they used to know my shosh so much than even the dad. So when the dad came, then they had to call my shosh. So my shosh ilibidi tuambie walimu my problems, unaona. And I hate pity. So your time unapata perspective ili change. So walimu wakaanzanga kunioneanga huruma nini. And I remember there was a time class teacher kaofa kanibaia kiatu. Then they used to even to buy for me books. I went to Kajiado. Then unfortunately when I was in class 8, my grandmother passed, and that was where everything changed for me, because I used to see love in that woman. I used to see a mother, a grandmother, a friend. By the way, she was my only friend during my childhood. Sikuwa na trust mtu, hakuna mtoto any age mate. So when she died, everything came to a stop, and I remember that point. Nakumkanga nilipatanga news when I was in school. After kutoka shule, I cried. Unajua sasa ukishapata news you react that immediately. So after kukuja nyumbani, I found my mama alikuwa ametoka. I found my dad alone, and kaniambia na sasa mtu mwenye alikuanga anakushield hasa ametoka, while laughing. And that hit me so much. And during
he actually explicitly told you that?
Yeah, imagine. But that time I was bold enough kwa sababu I knew, nilijua tu nikimpata tafurahia. Juu najuanga shushangu alikuwa namkazia kunifanyia vitu mingi sana. And I remember there was a time when I opened about my dad sexually harassing me. Ilifika time my shosha akaniambia pana mpeleke kwa chief. See already you have the evidence, I'm a kid or whatever. Hadi walikuwa wamebook appointment that I have to go and make a statement with the chief, huyu mwanaume ashikwe. And at that point I was like, it's me alone and my mom and 2 siblings. So nikasema sasa mimi surely si mimi tu peke yake. And after all, my biological dad who is supposed to be with me right now alini reject. Sasa akienda jela, hawa wawili watabaki na nani? How will my mom survive? Marriage yake ita stop? How will people view her in the society? And I come from a Luya community where msichana kurudi nyumbani, it's something else. tashwishi, they'll talk nini, and being the elder sister huko, so image to her matters a lot. Anything, what watasema nini, majirani watasema nini, yet you are suffering. People know the kind of husband she has, but she doesn't want to admit it. She will always cover it up. And one thing, one thing I lived when living with them, it was all about living a pretending life. Wangeenda church nayo wangeenda. Sometimes my stepdad ahubiri, vitu anaongea, and you like says umekaa, tears will start just flowing, because whatever he's preaching and whatever he's doing at home, it's completely different. Unaambia watu kaa kwa ndoa na unapiga bibi yako, unaambia wasichana sijui soma, and this is what you're doing to your daughter. But one thing in my childhood used to motivate me is my grandmother. Despite living that kind of life, at least alikuwanga ananimotivate, telling me positive things. I used to get positive vibes from her, and that is one thing that used to keep me going. Without her, I don't know where I could be right now. So now, after finishing class 8, I joined high school. Now, joining high school, as I told you, my mom living in a marriage where she's the one doing everything, but in the society she'll say that ni mzee amefanya, you see, just to cover up for her man. My mom alikopa madeni nini, and I joined high school. Joining high school, I was a very bitter, a bitter kid.
Yeah, experiences have made you
unasikia umebeba
just angry and bitter.
Yeah, like unasikia umebeba kitu kwa roho. So being that bitter used to make me a silent kid. I used to look silent, very innocent, but if vitu nimeweka kwa roho, it really
what used to go through your mind?
What used to go through my mind is, why is it me going through this? Unaona? Because the society, hadi mtu akujui, could see something positive in you. Yeah? I see this in you. Alafu home, they're telling you this. So, unapata ile conflict of mind.
People you're like, which one am I? Am I the good one or the bad
one?
The
bad one.
Yeah.
When you say at home they used to tell you a different thing. Was it coming from both your stepdad and your mother, or it was only your stepdad who was, questioning your identity and saying all the negative things that you didn't want to hear?
Mostly, it wasn't coming from my mom, it was coming from my stepdad. And mamangu angesikia na kuna kitu angefanya. Unajua kuagi mbele ya mzee whatever, tena chaos whatever, so angesikia tu naziabsorb zote. And I remember that time the communication between mother and daughter was not there. So angesikia as much as ningeona angetamani akuja niongelesha na mbinu whatever, haikuwa ifanyika.
Did you think your mother, to some extent, sorry I'm taking you back, feared facing your stepdad or standing up for you while all these things were happening?
Yeah, she really feared, because first thing, as I said, that most arguments were coming from, it was all about me. Sijui msichana wako nini whatever nini. So at a point hadi ilikuwa na avoid vitu zingine, so that I make my mom to be just safe, kwa sababu hizo arguments zingekuja hadi anagongwa. Imagine me seeing that, and also hao watu wengine wanaona, ilikuwa inawatocha. And at that point I used to see myself as the strong one. So mimi nilikuwa nafikiria yani hawa, and they are boys, whatever boys see as growing up, that is what they'll do through their wives or even kids later. So sometimes I used to just naelewa tu, sema after all ni mama wangu.
What about your siblings? Were you now the bigger person whenever all these issues were happening? Were you the one to now protect the kids, or what was your position while all these things were happening?
No, the kids were always protected. They were always loved. And I remember there was kuna times when nikiwa mdogo, I used to take responsibilities of their mistakes. Ni mimi atafanya, mwingine ataenda acheze anguke, ni mimi ndo nakuja kugongwa, mbona ameanguka, nilikuwa wapi? So for them, hawakuwa ipita hizi shida za nini. They were always loved, given everything. Tuition, hata kama holiday ni ya 1 week, wangeenda tuition. You see, it was all about just Mideva.
Maybe, okay, I don't know if Lilian, you have a question?
For me, maybe I'd want to take her back. And having experienced all the things that you experienced, what would you say, what was the effect on your mental health?
It affected me in a way that I didn't know myself. I was just there. I was just there. The only thing I could cling on was my education. At least that is one thing I was given for free. So I will sink myself to books and I'll write poems. And when I was alone, I'll cry. And sometimes I'll even wish to even die. Nakumbuka kuna so many times ningejipeleka juu ya ghorofa kabisa. Nitaki tu kujiwa, but I was like, death now ni painful. What if nianguke hivi vyote alafu nikose kukufa? So that having those suicidal thoughts, and it also affected my self-esteem, where mbele singeangalia mtu hivi kwa macho, singeongelesha mtu, watoto wangekuja tunataka kucheza na Mideva, nikatai. Not because I don't want to play, but because one thing, the moment I smile, I know this man will come and break my happiness. So to be safe, I'll just close myself in the room, do all house chores and just sit. That was the things I used to do. I remember the time I came to spoke about being sexually harassed, my church pressured me that, you have to speak out. You have to speak out. So kuna day my sponsor wamekuja shule. And wazungu wakikuja, whatever, easy vitu making beats, whatever. So I came home late. Coming home late, akaanza tu makelele, whatever. And when you're going through a lot, then mtu akuongeze sasa makelele. Unasikia, yani your mind is just
racing.
Unaona. So I was like, enough to all this. And my mom was just there, pia alikuwa ameingia your argument. And I told my mom, I respect the fact that I don't have a biological dad and you are my mom. Lakini wambie bwana wako ache kunishika ache I said something like that. And something funny ni after kusema hivyo, they said I have mapepo.
So who said you have mapepo?
Yeah, my dad. Cover it up. Alafu nakumbuka hiyo time I had beads. Unajua nimeshatengeneza beads umetoka, so I had them. Akasema hizo ndo vitu sijui ni
zinaleta mapepo.
Yeah, so it was not me speaking, it was demon speaking. So alichukua hizo vitu hadi akaenda kwa sink akazichoma. And I remember when I was just seated there, akasema ati hadi hizo mashetani zimemuongelesha.
Zikamwambia nini?
Zimwache. Hey, nakwambia that day I saw wonders. But one thing I thank God about speaking out is that he stopped. He feared that in case afanye kitu ingine I'll speak out. Yeah. At least hapo wakaanza, sasa kwa sasa aniara sexually. Sasa ananiara suku kwengine. Like, umetoka wapi? Nani unaongelesha? Unaona? Sitaki kukuona na huyo mtu. And hata shosho yangu angetaka kwenda na mimi mahali with cousins or whatever, angekata. Because I think he just feared that niki associate na watu, I'll come to expose him. That is what he didn't want. Yet he had painted a perfect picture to the society. The person who knows God. The caring father who is always there. Yeah.
Maybe you're speaking about him stopping, and you've mentioned you opening up at one point, saying all the things he had been doing to you. I'd like to know your mom's reaction. Like, had it ever, hit her that my daughter is going through this kind of pain? Has she ever, have a conversation with you as a mother and a daughter? And maybe you tell us at what point, maybe at what age did he stop doing all this?
So, to my mom, she knew that whatever my dad was doing was not right, but there was nothing she could have done because she wanted to protect her marriage. Nakumbuka kuna times ningepigwa, so majirani watoke, wamngoje atoke kazi, waende like kwa before unge stay to the gate, waende wasimame hapo kwa gate wamngoje, so that they tell her kenye bwanako amefanyia mtoto wako. But angeambiwa kuna kenye angefanya. My mom also was suffering, you see. Imagine being abused in marriage, alafu ndo tena, my mom also got me when she was in high school, unaona. So the pain angeona, I remember kuna time alikuwa pia anabita mess towards me juu angepitia hizo zote alafu ako tu yani, Mideva, it's you. So there was a time where, in high school, so I am the one who brought the mother-daughter relationship. I wanted to speak to my mom and to create that bond so that Kenya napitia ananiambia na pia Kenya napitia namwambia. So we started sharing. So yeah, I came to learn that too, I got to in that marriage just because of the other kids. But ako we soma tu utatoka tu kwa nyumba. You see, there was nothing she could do.
William.
Well, this is very heavy, and unfortunately this is the story of Mideva, and I feel like so many other people, because toxic caregivers, it's like we've normalized it. It's not something we take very seriously, and we assume that parents are always right. They always know what is right for the kids. And as you've heard, they have a way of, even though they're toxic or they are harmful, they find a way of covering up, to the extent of saying a child is possessed by demons. And I feel like that is very unfortunate. And even as we talk about this, it's important for our listeners to understand that the effect of the traumatic experiences, the experiences that you've had as a child, have an effect on you as you grow up. Because you see, for Mideva, for example, her self-esteem was crushed. She was at crossroads with her identity.
Yeah.
And now she was reduced to a child who's just silent with so many things going on the inside. And I don't know what, Derek, you can say, because I'm sure you've also made observations with this kind of situation that we are talking about. You've interacted with people who, their families or people who were meant to take care of them, harmed them either physically or psychologically.
Yeah, I think one thing that I feel bad about this story is she became a miniature adult. Like, Mideva became a parent while she was a child. It was her duty to take care of the other siblings, It was her duty to think about her mother's emotions, because each and every time the mother used to remind her, or rather subconsciously, without even saying, she wants to protect her marriage. So maybe even Mideva at some point felt like she was the cause of all that chaos within the household, and making her question her identity, the interaction. I think she has mentioned having a difficult interaction with other people because of the trust. One, your mother is not there to stand for you. You're not getting emotional support from your parents. You're all by your own. You have a grandmother. The grandmother is no longer there, So these are things that happen. Abuse, physical abuse that has happened to her, emotional abuse, the kind of words coming from the father, sexual abuse, all these forms happen. They do happen. I think I've shared and I've had this conversation with different friends of mine, and they're not willing to speak it up. Some are even having or finding it difficult to move out of their homes because they still feel like it is their responsibility to quote unquote protect their parents, or the parent who is undergoing some kind of violence or gender-based violence or marital violence. So it's really happening, and I love the fact that Mideva is courageous to speak about it. She can even gain the courage to smile about it, which is not even easy. Somebody to come here and say they have been sexually harassed by their caregiver, it's not an easy thing. So I think we need to get the courage to open up. I think one thing she's saying, and I think we should get to that point, is how she has managed to trust people. First of all, the fact that she's opening up to us is she has learned to trust us and other people. How did the journey come through? And now the grandmother is no longer there. She's joining high school. She's still going to meet this stepdad more and more often. So I want to know and understand how was the process like, and how did it affect her identity, growing up as an adult.
Yeah, and even before we get to that, I just want to highlight a few things that I have gotten from Mideva that have affected her both in childhood and even now as an adult. And we realize being raised in toxic environments really tampers with your identity, first of all. And also, there's a lot of trust issues. It's very difficult for you to trust people because your first contact, your first human contact, were people that you couldn't trust. So therefore, going out there, you automatically assume that even people out there will do the same thing or something similar that this person did. Then there's also suppression, because you see both for Mideva and her mom, they were abused, and her mom could not do anything for her daughter. They were suppressed. Abuse has a way of suppressing you, and even her, she was reduced to just a silent girl with so many things going on the inside. So there was that, and there was also fear of this particular person who is abusing you, and that could also relate to translate to you projecting it outside. When you go out there, you can be a very fearful person, and now your self-esteem can also be crushed, because if you're being abused, whether it's verbally, it almost makes you believe that maybe you're not worthy as a child, because you believe what is said to you, and if what is said to you is negative, that's what you believe, and that things like that could affect your self-esteem. So I felt the need to highlight these things for just our listeners, so that they can also understand whether they are parenting or taking care of their siblings, or they're actually people who have gone through a situation like this. Because many people, I know so many people who have been raised in extremely toxic families and broken families. So I think I just wanted to highlight that. Back to you, Derek.
I think I'd like to know more, Mideva, to share with us. Now she's joining high school. What was the situation like? Grandma is no longer there. And now you have to go back to the abusive stepdad in that household. Like, how was the process like for you in high school, and how did you come to trust people maybe later on?
Yeah, so joining high school, and now when I joined high school, things even became more worse, because being a bright student, I remember the first grade I got was an A. From 1 I used to go to get A's, then from 2's A minuses. Despite the fact I used to get those A's, bado tu ningekuwa torment. Hizi nini unaleta? Makaratasi gani hizi unaleta? I remember hadi kuna time ma report book zilikuwa zina fly kwa nyumba, unarushiwa. Unaona, you're a loser bana. And I'm among the top 10. Teachers are praising me, the principal is praising me, but when I go home, I'm a loser. Mbona umepata 60? Mbona umepata 70? So now that became another stress, another burden to me. That academic pressure. You're performing, but they're not seeing that effort. And it made things worse. I remember in Form 2 second term, I got a B. And when I got a B, I remember nili from school kukuja hadi hapa town. Nilikuwa napiga hesabu vile nitaingia kwa hiyo nyumba. Nini nitaambiwa, and it was not all about me. So it was all about me and my mom. Mamangu ataambiwa nini? Unaona? So anything concerning me, it could be connected to my mom. Yeah, nakeleleshwa kabisa. So at Form 2 first term, I wanted to commit suicide. And I remember there was a time this teacher, who was my physics teacher, I was a school leader and I was a peer counselor. So people used to think highly of me. Despite the fact I'm going through a lot, people could come na mashida zao, nini, waniambie, sijui, Wilda niko na nini, nisaidie, whatever. I could help them. I could also share with them about my experiences, nini. So, coming that term pia, I also attempted to commit suicide. And that was a break point for me. Now, that teacher at first term who approached me and told me that, Mideva, you I'm seeing, yani you are walking but your spirit, everything, it's not here. Ni mwili yako tu ndo iko issue ile vile tunakuona. That thing used to ilini hit kwa sababu I used to really protect myself kabisa. Sikuwa nataka watu wajue my story. So yani amerealize aje na suffer. So that time I went to that teacher and I told him, enough is enough. I want to change. I'm tired of living a bitter life, you know. And that point he was a spiritual man, and living, I know during those times when I was suffering in my childhood, I used to turn to God. Mungu tu nisaidie, praying. My social alikuwa ananiambia sasa tafanya nini, omba tu Mungu vitu zita change. So we started a session, going there, praying for me nini, and it reached a time where my heart was just ilikuwa sasa light. At that time ningekumbuka ningeenda home hata a crack joke and I could laugh at home, because prior to that first thing ningemwona hivi all events zenye amenifanyia zingekuja, ningekuwa bitter. So at times like hata angetaka kunichekesha, I could just fake a smile. Ile smile ya uchungu ile yenye unatoka tu nje kwa like God, hii maisha itaisha lini? So I came to realize, it's time I live my life. It's time I stop living the life for my mom. My mom ali choose path yake already. Now the fact that she has decided to choose a marriage over me, it is her life. The fact that my dad wants to torment me, it is his life. Yeah, I have to recognize now who is Mideva. What was I, nini nililetwa hii dunia kufanya? Recognize my talent, my passion, my happiness. Now from there everything now changed. Even when I used to go to context debate, public speaking, things changed, and I really used to shine. I used to really feel happy about myself. And even going home, I also that was the time I created a bond with my mom, that kind of a friendship. And creating that friendship, it became better kwa sababu pia ya kuna mashida zake, pia mimi, so inafika mahali hadi tu chana tu na things will get better. But high school was kind of tough because my mom was struggling and taking loans to finance my school fees, and I had to take care of my shopping. So my mom, Mideva, you have to shughulikia sasa shopping yako. Mia nimefanya pati yangu, so unaona hadi nimejaribu ni mimi peke yangu. And yeah, I used to understand. So I will call my aunties sometimes and tell them nitumie kitu, I do some shopping or whatever. And I remember even living in high school, some people used to think that I even come from a rich background. I used to portray ile picture yenye sikosi, niko tu. Nakumbuka kuna visiting day since form 1 hadi form 4 nishai kujiwa, apart from the prayer day. But hizo siku nilikuanga nachangamka, being also a secretary, unachangamka, you are smiling to people, and other people's parents pia walikuwa wananipenda. Domo watu wakikula pia wewe pia uko na zako za kukula. Mungu pia alikuwa amefanya mambo tu zake yenye inanificha tu aibu. Yeah. So I came to realize that I also want to tell people who are passing through what I passed through, that stop living life for others. Stop being bitter. Nobody cares when you're bitter. People will live their life. Nobody wants to know if you're sad or what. Watu kwa wanaendelea kuishi maisha yao, because nilikuanga na hangaika and I used to be bitter, lakini at the end of it all, my dad atenda huko afanye vitu zake. Unajua already asha create jina yake. My mom pia, they will continue with their pretentious life forever, and that is them. But Wilda, who I am, mimi ni nani? You see? So I started finding my talents, what I love. I started also associating with people. Talking with people, unasikia stories zao, na nini, uko like, but unapitia, things will just be fine. If I pass through that, things will just be fine. And from then, life has been easy, and I've been happy since I found myself. because I decided, let me say, mind my business. And sai bado tu he keeps on attacking me, but I don't take it personal. Na kuna times I'll call him, unajua saa zingine being in campus umefika mwisho, you have nothing, ndo hiyo rent unafaa ulipe nini. I call him and sina chakula, hii nyumba tu iko empty. Unapewa jibu, unaambiwa hii ni Nairobi, unafoje vile usha survive. Nitakata tu simu and I'll be just okay. I'll just smile at the end of the day, because I know I'm creating my story. I don't want my next generation to suffer the way I suffered. And I know there's so many people who are going through this and fear speaking up. But I just want to tell them, always learn to choose yourself. I live my life choosing people. Unajua, yani choosing adults. Already they have passed through primary, high school, they're living their life, they're already married. So choosing my mom in my early stage, it really costed me. Na nakumbuka kuna time nilikuanga nachukia wanaume. Nilikuwa nachukia wanaume sana. I could see a man even approaching me. Unaniambia nini? I never wanted any relationship with a man. Even male teachers could come to me, Wilda, what's wrong with you, nini? Staki. I'm seeing my dad in them. You see, I'm seeing watanifanya tu kenye babangu alinifanyia. A man will approach me, atanifanya tu kenye babangu alinifanyia. But at least right now, I associate with people like where I associate even with my course mates, and yeah.
And I would want to know, like, how are you doing right now in terms of your self-esteem, trust? Are you more trusting? Is your self-esteem higher? How are you doing now?
Now, since my healing, I always choose positivity. The world is contaminated. There's so many things. People will nini. But all my life, since that time, I chose to love people. At least I know what it means to love someone. I know what it means to be loved. I know what it means to trust someone. Now, it is up to you to decide whether to break that trust or to build that trust. So I I've associated with so many people. I trust them. I'm a very free person. Kwanza me saa zingine unapatanga, even despite healing, kuna time unapata kuna pressure bado anakufuata tu. Nakumbuka kuna time hadi high school alinifuata, akaenda kwa principal and he came home telling the story ati principal ameniambia tabia Wilda ni kwenda teachers quarters kulala na wanaume. And that hiyo time mamangu akanipigia simu akaniambia, sasa wewe mali imefika, wewe utatafuta tu vile utafanya mtihani, tumechoka na wewe. That statement ilini cut deep. It really cut me deep, kwa sababu uni mama mwenye amekuzana na kuambia hivyo. And phone calls we used to come. Na hiyo time nilikuwa ushago, Wilda, ni ukweli nini. But my family, I always take my mother's family, their side, as my family. My aunties, my uncle chose to trust me. Waka raise fee, I went back to school. Now going back to school, hadi walimu wako, is that really your dad? Do you really live with that man? Unaona? People from outside wakikuuliza vitu kama hizo, but you'll just smile and be like, chana tu, acha tu nisome. You see? Because tena kuhurumiwa tena, it doesn't feel good. Hiyo tena inachangianga tena mtu kuwa na low self esteem. Juu utatoka kwa huyu akuhurumie hadi inafika mahali unachoka. So sometimes I get that pressure, but I'm that kind of a person that when I am under pressure, I'll just get my contact list. Mtu tu mwenye nimeona, I'll call, I'll talk it out. Then after that, I think I'm good to press on. I'm good to love other people. I'm good to trust other people. And I always, even tukiassociate pia na cosmates wangu, campus, we have also different people. Kuna watu wakuko, unajua, people don't believe in themselves. Kuna watu wanaishi life, you think they're living a perfect life, unaona, but deep inside they're under depression. So mtu ataona vile you are carrying yourself, akuje aseme, okay Mideva, kwani what do you do? Nini, mbona unakuanga hivi? Then I tell them, I've also been there. Stop living that life, it will cost you nini. Trust me nini, and you try to show them love. There's some people, I lived my life. Hakuna mtu aliyeniambia ati, Mideva, I love you. So when my church used to tell me, you know what, I love you, you're so precious to me, it really used to mean a lot. So I've come to know the value of someone telling you I love you. You know, just that statement I love you really means a lot, because people are going through a lot. Ingefika mahali hata mtu ananiambia I love you, at least na feel, you know, are very good. So appreciating these small things and also loving people and trusting people, it has made me grow and also build my self-esteem.
Podcasts are an amazing way to get your message out. You get an engaged audience who consume your content anywhere, anytime, and we'd like to help you get started with launching your podcast. Acute helps you conceptualize, produce, package, and distribute. Email us at hello@acute.co.ke. That's acute with a Q. Time to express yourself.
Wow, you've come a long way. I totally have to say I am inspired, because it's not easy to go through something like that and bounce back and be a positive, inspiring human being. It's not easy to even decide you want to come out of it and actually come out of it. So I'd say you have come a long way, and I'm sure this is going to inspire the people that are listening to us today. And Derek, do you have...
I don't know if I have anything to say, but maybe in your final statement as Mideva, maybe you could, what is the statement that will share with kids who are still going through these experiences at home? What will you tell them that you think will help them? I think you've mentioned some, but I'm assuming there are still who are either they're in high school, they're in campus, there are those even they're working, they're in their marriage, but they're still rooted to issues relating to their parents, and those experiences are still within them. If you have anything to tell them, maybe now is the time.
Okay, you know, some of the things I can say zenye nataka kuambia ni they might be kind of hard, but one thing I've learned is, the first thing, forgive and mean your forgiveness. Second thing, love even the people who hurt you. If they reward you with the heart and you reward them with love, one day they'll come back to their senses and see yenyewe, you know, and they'll try giving love back. Then the third thing is, don't fear speaking out. Don't fear speaking out. The more you put things to yourself, the more you become bitter. The more there is the more that you become, your self-esteem becomes very low. So if you have a guardian or someone who is harassing you sexually, someone who is even abusing you, just speak out. Don't be afraid of speaking out, because I know what it means to speak out. You might be afraid that person will harm you, but what thing after speaking out, that person will be afraid of doing what he or she did to you, because he or she knows that one day you're going to speak out. And know yourself. Recognize what do you love? What do you love engaging in? And start living your life. One thing I've come to recognize is most of us human beings waste a lot of time living other people's life and assisting other people to live their life, forgetting that wherever we left our life at a certain point, that is where we will get it. So the time you're collecting yourself, it will be too late. What if I started writing my poems at an early age? I started speaking out at an early age. Right now I could have been somewhere else, you see. But you know, keeping those things to myself, it kind of deterred me. It wasted so many of my years and my childhood years, which I could be enjoying. So right now I'm trying to live a life that I could have lived some 10 years back. So live your life and learn to speak out.
Mideva, you know, you're saying forgive and mean it, love those who hurt you. Sounds like
I'm trying to imagine how
That's why
how,
I said-
how do you
it's not easy.
forgive?
So
I
how
know.
do you love those who hurt you? How do you forgive and mean it after you've gone through experiences like this from people that should have taken care of you? How do you get to that point? Because maybe there's somebody who's listening and they're looking at you, telling them forgive and mean
This
it.
is
They're
crazy.
thinking I'm a very long way from forgiving and meaning it. Because how do I even begin?
Yeah, and one thing people should realize, one day you leave this world and you'll be judged on your own. So what matters is what you give. I remember it was also difficult for me to forgive. Ningesema nimeforgive niende huko alafu bado tu nikimwona I'm like hiyo hatred bado iko, vitu zenye ananifanyia na bado anaendelea kunifanyia ingekuja na like ninge feel so much bitter. But when I mean about forgiving and meaning it is that you have to accept the things he or she did to you. Yeah, you have to know that it has already happened to me and I can't change it. And when you want to change something, always change it in a positive way, because one thing you cannot take yourself to biz umwe na biz. Always take care of yourself, and one way of taking care of yourself is forgiving people, because I was suffering but he was not suffering. I was the one who was suffering. Ananifanyia mabaya ako happy, but mimi ndo ananiacha na uchungu. So it really used to hurt me, but now you are happy and I'm suffering. That is what inauma watu wengi sana. But when you accept the things zenye alikufanyia and you just forgive that person and start viewing life in a positive way, when he tries to hurt you, akikutusi, usimtusi, usimwambie you are my stepdad hata mimi sikutambi. No, just keep quiet. It will reach a time this person will come to his senses and sees that enye alikuwa anafanya mambo mabaya. Because right now even when I go and visit them at home, he can't, huwa nigombanishi, huwa nifanyi nini, kwa sababu nilimreward with love, nilimreward with silence. So hiyo kitu bado I think huwa inamhaunt. Unaona, inafikanga mali hadi wanachoka tu. So always forgive and mean it, because your happiness, forgiving is all about your happiness, not that person's happiness. Your happiness matters. And when I come to realize my happiness matters, I didn't care about him. Yeah, fanya tu aendelee. I'll reward him with love. I'll reward the society with love.
So what I'm hearing you say is, when we are forgiving, you're not forgiving for them. You're forgiving so that you can let yourself free, for your peace of mind.
Yeah.
So that you can stay sane. Okay.
Which I think is true. I think I had an issue with forgiving people. I remember this time, should be I don't know whether it's 2 years, I was in church, and the lady who was leading the session that day, he mentioned something. He said, when you choose to not to forgive, it's like taking poison and expecting somebody else to die. And I think it changed me completely, because when I'm mad at you, I'm always angry. Even when I see you, my moods change completely. But there are so many people outside here who will hurt you, and they will live their life. They'll be happy. You'll be the one suffering most of the time. Maybe my last question to Mideva is, you have mentioned now that at times you visit them and you give love, from here to give love. Will you say you going to school or to campus and staying away has played a huge role in finding yourself, healing, and letting go of the past?
Yeah, being away from him, it has really played a huge role, because it has brought respect. Because right now I'm able to do the things I love without constriction. At a point back, I mentioned about even I feared playing with my fellow kids, because the moment he sees me smiling, he will do anything just to bring pain to me. Yeah, he will even go and agombanishe jirani, si mtoto wako nini, whatever, to break the relationship. So being away, at least I have searched myself. I know what I love. I do things that I love, and when I go home, si mimi ndo namwambia stories zangu, atasikia stories zangu mahali. And I remember there was a time when I became the best female debater, was in Western, I think 2 years ago. I was not the person who told him. It is the principal who called him. And nakumbukanga hiyo statement ilinibamba sana, and at least I'll admit, wow, I'm great, and that thing ikafanya akajua, okay, kumbe, mi namview hivi namtesa, but uko nje ana shine. So that thing ilifanya kumbe it's called going back to the drawing board and starting to also search himself. At least right now he's not tormenting me as he used to do. Yeah, so being away from him, it has brought that respect. And when I go home, and when I choose happiness, I don't mind about him, whatever he says. And one thing he will say when I'm not there, so mi nikienda nyumbani, I'll be happy, engage with my mom, engage with my siblings, na bado nitoke tu. So long as he doesn't tell me I'm okay, live your life, I live my life, because at least unajua yeye ako mbele yangu sana. For me, I have a lot to do with my life, and I want to change the world to the positivity. Staki wanaumekaa au wakuje the next generation.
Yeah.
It must end with him.
Lastly, I think I have questions, and I'm here to learn. I think I'm learning all through. I hope our listeners are learning too. Assume one day, I don't know if it has happened, you've said you're forgiven him. I believe that it includes also your mom. How will it be like when your mom, your dad comes for your forgiveness? Now they come and say they love you and they're sorry for the things they've taken you through. How will it be like you? How will it be like for you?
For me, it will be normal, because I don't expect. I forgave them a long time ago. Right now I have no hatred. After I call him, and I use his name. So using his name means a lot. So when they come and they realize that what they did, and come and seek forgiveness, still it will be normal for me.
It won't make you feel happy, relieved, at peace. You're happy. Wow.
I'm already happy.
Wow. Lillian, back to you.
Thank you so much, Mideva, for this session. I know it's quite different from what we usually do, but I'm hoping that, I know for sure it will inspire and many people will learn from your experience, and it also it will validate other experiences that people have experienced, because so many people have experienced things that are similar to that, but they never talk about it. So thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your experience. We are very inspired, and we are happy that you are where you are right now, and you're continuing to learn and unlearn things that you need to. So with that, I think it's time to now say goodbye.
Before then, you need to share your contacts.
Oh, okay. Yeah, in case of any mental health support or access to a mental health services, you can contact me on 0792015089, and we'll be able to see how we can help you. With that said, I am out, and bye-bye.
Goodbye, and thank you to all those who listen and give feedback to our sessions. You make us do better things each time. Have yourself a lovely time. Goodbye.